Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to go through the complete setup on a US Cutter Titan 3. Let's get started by talking about the blade and the blade holder. In this example, we will show you a 45-degree blade, which we recommend for window film. For PPF, you should use a 60-degree. Remove and uncap the blades and insert the blade into the bottom until the magnet catches it. This blade holder has a plunger on the other side. Pushing this down will eject the blade when it comes time to replace it. You can see here the blade is extended way too far. In order to adjust it, turn the silver knob counterclockwise to draw it inward. Adjust the blade inward until you cannot feel it with your finger. Turn the blade clockwise with quarter turns until you barely feel it protruding from the holder. Minor adjustments are key here. The tip of the blade should feel like a hair is touching your skin. You should have a hard time seeing it. Keep making minor adjustments and check using the tip of your finger. Once the blade has been extended, tighten the brass lock ring so the blade doesn't change in length during normal operation. Now let's install the blade holder into the cutter. Insert the blade holder assembly into the cutter head. Tighten the thumb screw to secure it. Make sure to pay attention that the top lip is below the C-clamp. If it is above the C-clamp, it will not be able to cut the window film. If your carriage is different, check the user manual for your plotter to make sure it's installed properly. Now let's put some film on the plotter. The rubber wheel is called the pinch roller. The textured steel wheel on the bottom is called the grit roller. We will only use the two rollers on the far right. These three are not used. On the back, load your roll. The blade should only cut the tent, not the release liner. Make sure the liner is on the bottom when loading. This could be different depending on the film manufacturer. Hold tension in the middle of the roll before closing the set lever. That will help the film track straight during cutting. After you close the set lever, make sure to pre-feed the film before cutting a template. If you don't, this could cause a motor error or jam the cutter. Back on the front of the cutter, you want to make sure your pinch rollers are lined up and closed with the grit roller. If the pinch roller is not on top of the grit roller, the film will not feed properly or at all. This will cause major film waste, and nobody likes that. If you're cutting really dark window film, you won't be able to see the grit roller. This plotter has stickers that mark the location of the grit rollers. Again, just make sure your pinch rollers are lined up on top of the grit roller. Remember that we are only cutting the film between the right and the left pinch roller. This is because the grit roller puts impressions onto the film during the operation, which will be seen during an install. On this cutter, the pinch rollers are 1/2 inch wide. So if you have a 40-inch roll, the maximum cutting width will be 39 inches. In addition, that's if you have the film lined up perfectly with the edge on each side. Now let's set the speed and force. We are going to start this one at a speed of 300 millimeters a second and a downforce of 63 grams. We recommend running the speed at 150 for PPF. When starting with a new blade, we typically start the force somewhere between 60 and 80 grams. There are a lot of factors including film thickness, type of film, and blade condition that affect the force. Although it should be in that range, your plotter may produce different results. On this cutter, you have to set the origin before each cut. Start by pressing the on-off line button. You may have a different name on your plotter like pause or offline pause button on your cutter. Once it's offline, hold down the arrow to move the cutter head into position. You want to position it inside the pinch roller. Now that it's positioned, we need to press enter. Again, your button may actually say origin, but in our example, we only have an enter button. Setting the origin has to be done each time you load the film on the plotter and is a good habit to get into before each cut. This will reduce your wasted film. Now we need to make sure it's cutting properly by cutting a small pattern. Most plotters have a test or test cut button that cuts a small square in a triangle, or could also be a circle or combination of those. This is just to ensure that we're cutting only the tint and not all the way through the liner. On this plotter, you must take the plotter offline so the down arrow will roll the film out. Roll the film out after pressing the test button to see the cut. In this case, it didn't cut deep enough, so I'm going to increase the force and try again. Now that I've increased the force, let's test it again. Now that it successfully cut the square and the triangle, let's cut a larger strip so we can test how it cuts across the entire width of the film. Click on the Blade Depth Calibrate icon in the software to cut a strip along the entire width of the roll. I have a 40-inch roll, but with the pinch rollers taking up 1 inch of that space, I'm going to choose a 38-inch strip. If the calibration strip does not peel smoothly after cutting, try increasing the cutting force by 1 increment and recut. Repeat this process, increasing the force 1 click at a time until the calibration strip peels away smoothly without resistance. Now we have to make sure the plotter is cutting the templates without scaling them bigger or smaller. Open the Blade Depth Calibration window, then in the bottom right of that window, select Calibrate Plotter. Clicking on Cut will cut a 10-inch or 254mm square. This is a very important step to make sure the cutter is producing templates of the proper size and should be done weekly to ensure accuracy. Weed the template and grab your ruler. It's recommended that you use a ruler with millimeters or 1/16 of an inch markings. Window film templates often have very tight tolerances, so making accurate cuts is imperative to successful installations. This one measured at 252 on the width and 253 on the length. Back in the software, enter the measurements of the square, paying special attention to width and height as they could be different. Enter the dimensions in millimeters, then click Save. Cut the square again and remeasure. This time it should measure exactly 254 millimeters or 10 inches. You may have to do this multiple times to get consistent results. This is a very important step to make sure your plotter is outputting the proper dimensions and could lead to templates that seem like they don't fit if it's not done on a regular basis. Now it measures exactly 254 millimeters or 10 inches. Make sure to measure both the length and the height. This time, they both measure 254 millimeters or 10 inches. If your square did not measure 10 inches or 254 millimeters, you will need to click Reset and repeat the process. If you need further assistance, feel free to call us at 1-800-452-7311 or email us at support@digicut.com. What other videos would you like to see? Comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.